Welcome to your definitive starting point for Golden State Warriors news. Here you'll find everything that truly matters about the team. Behind-the-scenes updates, front office decisions, training updates, roster analysis, game-by-game performance, and, of course, the hottest NBA rumors and moves. No fluff, no noise, and with the context you need to understand what's happening right now and what could explode in the next few hours. If you want to follow the Warriors with fast, clear information and that perspective of someone who lives this franchise every day, this is your place. So drop a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because here we don't miss any important news. Let's begin. Let's start with the topic that's irritating a lot of people who follow the American Football League with real attention to the details of a project. There's a clear sense that the dominant narrative doesn't want to treat Sean Payton as a real contender for a coaching award. This isn't just a matter of taste or some common round-table debate. It's the kind of resistance that shows up when a coach starts rebuilding identity, culture, and competitiveness at a pace that threatens the prepackaged stories many people were already comfortable telling. Because what defines a strong candidate for a high-impact coaching award isn't just the final score of one specific week. It's the trail of transformation. It's the difference between seeing a team react by chance and seeing a team that knows exactly what it's trying to become. And Payton has the history and the method for that. When the national media turns up its nose, it's often not because of a lack of evidence. It's because the evidence forces everyone to rewrite the main script. This kind of public undervaluation usually happens for a few predictable reasons. First, the weight of prior expectations. When a coach carries a big reputation, some analysts act as if he has to do the impossible to deserve credit, while other contenders get the spotlight for smaller improvements. Second, the power of darlings of the moment narratives. And third, the discomfort that emerges when a project starts winning without needing to ask permission from public opinion. The point is that this discussion doesn't live in a vacuum. It feeds internal mindset. Because when you realize you won't get easy applause, you stop playing for approval and start playing for legacy. And that, in any league, is dangerous. A locker room that buys into that idea tends to become more cohesive, more resilient, and more confident in the long-term plan. Now switch to the NBA, because what's being speculated around the Golden State Warriors has the same flavor of, this isn't going to happen, until it does. There's a growing feeling that the interest in Giannis Antetokounmpo is the most obvious and least hidden secret in the league. It's not a loose wish. It's an ambition that makes sense with the team's current window and with the need to put next to Stephen Curry a physical, dominant force capable of reshaping the conference map. But every great idea comes with a cruel question. What are you willing to lose to gain something that changes your history? Because a realistic package for a star of that size doesn't come from symbolic cuts. It comes from choices that hurt. And that's where the dilemma that has fans holding their breath comes in. To make this move viable, the Warriors would probably have to give up a central piece of identity or immediate impact. The discussion gets even more complex when you look at the quiet, almost historical relationship between the Warriors and Bulls. It's not new that these two teams show up as neighbors in rumors across different contexts. There have already been peripheral talks involving centers, elite defenders, scorers, and even draft scenarios that, in the past, could have completely changed Golden State's recent trajectory. It's as if the two franchises have been watching each other for years, evaluating the exact moment to turn curiosity into a real deal. But the most interesting point now isn't a simple direct trade. It's the outline of a three-team operation. When a franchise the size of the Milwaukee Bucks considers moving its biggest pillar, it isn't thinking about staying competitive in the same way. It's thinking about maximizing the future, picks, and flexibility. So any relevant veteran contract leaving the Warriors would, in theory, need to find another destination, because it doesn't fit what Milwaukee would be looking for in a structural reset scenario. And that's where Chicago enters as a functional piece of the puzzle. Why? Because the Bulls have a clear need for defensive identity and immediate competitive leadership. There's a sense that the team needs a veteran with a playoff personality, someone who arrives and reminds the franchise every single day that the game isn't theory, it's intensity, reading the floor, and commitment. An impact defensive power forward would be a shortcut to changing the team's tone, especially at a time when the organization is trying to balance youth with short-term seriousness. At the same time, Chicago doesn't seem interested in disrupting the development and protagonism of its new creation and transition pieces. That helps explain why certain recent rumors involving young Warriors prospects have lost steam, at least within this specific logic. It's not necessarily a lack of respect for the talent. It's a practical question of ball usage, roles, and internal growth priorities. So the scenario that's gaining shape is this. The Warriors target Giannis as the piece that transforms the team's ceiling. The Bucks want a heavy package of assets, picks, and young players with real room to grow. And the Bulls could absorb a high-impact defensive veteran who, for them, wouldn't be leftovers, but a culture catalyst. In speculated models, the heart of the return for Milwaukee revolves around a high-ceiling young player and a robust collection of first-round picks. This is the kind of structure that makes sense when you're not trying to win now, but to build a base that can become something strong when the dust settles. On top of that, expiring contracts and rotation players work as flexibility currency for the future, whether for new trades or for reorganizing the salary sheet. For Golden State, the central question isn't just whether the price is high, it's whether the price is coherent with the effect, because Giannis isn't a fine adjustment. He's an era change within the team's own competitive cycle. With him, the team stops being merely dangerous on hot shooting nights and becomes a constant threat of physical imposition, lethal transition, and paint dominance, something the current roster, even with good names, doesn't deliver consistently at the same level. And when you try to imagine a lineup with Curry surrounded by wings and an interior force capable of attacking at speed and defending multiple actions, the logic of the investment starts to look more tempting, not because it's simple, but because it gives the team a plan A that doesn't depend on just one style of play. It's the difference between being a team that needs specific conditions to win and being a team that imposes conditions on others. Of course, there's the emotional side that nobody pretends doesn't exist. Letting go of a defensive icon and internal leadership figure messes with the DNA of any group. Fans aren't programmed to accept that coldly. And that's exactly why this possibility divides people so much. Because it isn't just a spreadsheet move. It's an identity decision. But the NBA is ruthless with anyone who lets nostalgia stay behind the wheel for too long. The concept of the right timing is what separates franchises that renew without collapsing from those that watch their window close slowly, only to realize too late. And when you have the chance to add a player at Giannis's level, the entire league knows that this kind of opportunity doesn't just show up out of nowhere twice in a row. The part that draws the most attention in this three-team design is that each side would have a rational argument to say yes. The Bucks would gain a concrete bridge to the future. The Bulls would receive a defensive reinforcement with strong voice and on-court weight. And the Warriors could give Curry one last truly elite structure around him without relying only on promises, but on proven dominant presence. None of this means the trade will happen. It means that within the realistic board of interests, it's one of the few architectures that doesn't look like internet fantasy. It has logic of cross needs. It has contract logic. And it has basketball logic. And it's curious how this kind of news connects with the American football topic we opened with at the start. Because in both cases, there's a battle for narrative. In the first, they try to minimize the strength of a coach's project, even when the impact is right there. In the second, a lot of people try to treat the Warriors' massive ambition as an unlikely idea for mental comfort, as if admitting viability would be accepting a frightening shift in the league's balance. Deep down, professional sport is this. When the noise outside doesn't recognize the storm coming, those inside the eye of the hurricane are already preparing to flip the table. If we step out of theory and put this possible trade engineering on the hardwood, it becomes easier to understand why so many people treat this conversation as something that could become the turning point of the Warriors' current cycle. Because we're not talking about adding just one more big name to stamp headlines. We're talking about fitting in a player capable of altering possession pace, defensive structure, and the way the rest of the conference would be forced to prepare. The first obvious impact of Giannis in Golden State would be transforming the team in transition. Today, the Warriors can still generate runouts, but they no longer rely on that as a central weapon the way they did in other phases. With an athlete of that size and speed, the fast game stops being a secondary option and becomes a permanent nightmare for opponents who miss shots or turn the ball over. He isn't just someone who finishes a fast break. He starts the chaos and ends the chaos. In the half-court offense, everything changes too. The presence of such a dominant finisher near the rim forces two almost inevitable defensive reactions. Either you collapse with heavy help and give open shots to specialists, or you try more individual coverage and accept watching the paint get attacked in waves. That kind of dilemma is exactly what the Warriors would need to avoid becoming predictable in long series. And then there's a decisive detail. Giannis's coexistence with Stephen Curry wouldn't just be a sum of talents. It would be an offensive geometry partnership. Curry pulls the defense far away from the rim, warps the help line, and creates invisible lanes. Giannis attacks those lanes as if they were motorways. What looked like tight space becomes infinite space when a player forces the defense to choose between the impossible and the worse. In that construction, the importance of wings who defend and knock down shots grows even more. Because the ideal isn't to turn the offense into something centered only on one star. It's to keep the Warriors' mobile identity, but with a physical anchor who finishes when the movement creates the advantage. That's why more disciplined rotation names gain value in a potential version of this team. If we look at the roster projection that circulates around this idea, the shape that forms has balance logic. A generational point guard as the engine, wings capable of alternating roles, a veteran center to provide stability and reading, and Giannis as the athletic heart that sustains aggression on both ends. It's a team that combines half-court intelligence with transition brutality. Defensively, the leap would also be immediate, because Giannis is one of those players who covers mistakes that would normally cost an entire series. He helps at the rim, switches onto wings, protects the central zone, and still has the reach to contest shots that, for most, would be unreachable. On a team that already values defensive reading and communication, his presence would almost be a multiplier of collective confidence. But that's exactly why the price would be so high. And this is where the emotional component turns into real strategic analysis. Giving up a piece that symbolizes defensive leadership and competitive identity isn't simple, nor should it be treated as a cold calculation. But in the context of a possible trade for Giannis, that sacrifice gains a particular logic. It wouldn't be giving up to weaken the team. It would be giving up to transform the team into something few can match. Now let's look from Milwaukee's side. If that door ever truly opens, the team won't accept an offer that looks like just a rearrangement of veterans. The goal would be to secure strong picks and young players who can become pillars. The logic of the package discussed around a high-ceiling young player, plus contracts that allow flexibility and a robust volume of first-round picks is precisely that. Rebuild with enough raw material to get it right more than once. The detail of the picks is more relevant than it seems. Because first-round picks aren't valuable only for the number. They're valuable for the future context of the team sending those picks. When a franchise sends multiple picks in distant years, it's assuming it will remain competitive for a long period. But when you bet big on two superstars already at a more advanced stage of their careers, there's always the risk of a sharper drop later on. And that tends to inflate the value of future picks in the eyes of whoever is receiving them. That's why the Bucks' perspective makes sense within a future-minded mentality. They wouldn't just be accumulating picks for the sake of it. They'd be buying restart possibilities with high return potential. And if the main young player in the package really earns space and autonomy, the franchise gains a new anchor to mold as the face of the next cycle. The Chicago Bulls' participation ties together the most practical side of the spreadsheet. Because in big trades, the obstacle often isn't just convincing stars, but building a route of salaries and assets that's viable. Chicago would function as a logical destination to absorb a veteran with defensive impact and leadership, while sending back to Milwaukee something more aligned with what a rebuild wants: a contract that's less emotionally heavy, a valuable pick, and a cleaner path to reorganizing the roster. And in the Bulls' case specifically, there's a strong basketball argument for this move. A young team or one in transition needs someone who sets the daily standard of competitiveness. It's not just about big games. It's about practices, posture, culture. This type of acquisition has a double advantage. It accelerates the growth of those who are arriving now and injects immediate respect on the floor. For a franchise looking for a leap in defensive seriousness, that fit would make sense. Back to the Warriors. The real risk of a bet this big isn't just losing depth. It's the pressure that a championship becomes a moral obligation of the investment. When you pay with youth and multiple picks, you shrink your margin for error. You're no longer betting on gradual growth. You're declaring war for the top. But that's the kind of risk some competitive windows demand. Because a star like Curry doesn't need vague promises at a time when the legacy clock is counting down. He needs a structure capable of winning 4 times in a series against the best. And Giannis is exactly the kind of addition that turns a team from dangerous into inevitable when everything clicks. There's also the psychological impact on the rest of the league. An agreement of this caliber sends messages in 3 directions at once. To the West, it would be a clear warning that the Warriors are willing to sacrifice comfort to return to the real top-tier fight. To the East, it would be confirmation that the Bucks would be beginning a deep identity shift. And for the Bulls, a sign that the team wants to rise in mindset, not just in statistics. In the end, what makes this scenario so fascinating is that it doesn't depend on random imagination. It depends on a rare convergence of needs. The Warriors need a second supreme pillar to raise the ceiling in the short term. Milwaukee, if it chooses to change direction, needs a package that justifies turning the page. And Chicago appears as the rational gear that makes the logistics possible and defensively competitive. When those 3 pieces fit into the same design, the story stops being empty rumor and becomes a functional hypothesis. Whether it will happen or not is another conversation. But as a realistic market exercise, it's one of the most coherent lines that circulates when the subject is a trade capable of reorganizing the league hierarchy. If you enjoyed this analysis and want more scripts in this style, drop a like and subscribe. Kai returned to the court with an impressive performance, reaffirming his status as one of the most promising talents in Asian basketball. In a recent game against Kyoto, he delivered a spectacular performance, scoring 20 points, grabbing 4 rebounds, and dishing out 3 assists. These numbers not only stand out in the stats, but also showcase the constant evolution of a player who becomes more complete with each game. From the first minute, it was clear he was ready to shine. Combining height, agility, and technical skills, he dominated the paint, leaving opposing defenders without answers. His mid-range shots were sharp, a reflection of the continuous effort he dedicates to improving his game. Moreover, his court vision became evident in decisive moments, distributing assists and connecting his teammates in important plays. When the game reached its most tense moments, Kai took responsibility, showing leadership and composure. In the third quarter, he made a memorable play by dribbling past 2 defenders, converting a crucial basket, and hitting the free throw after being fouled. Plays like this not only excite the crowd, but also highlight his ability to perform under pressure, a key trait for any player with ambitions of reaching the NBA. His fans have plenty of reasons to be excited. Kai is about to hit historic milestones in the B-League. With just 76 points remaining to reach 1,000 career points, he is approaching a select group of players known for their offensive consistency. Additionally, he has already surpassed 500 rebounds, establishing himself as a dominant presence in the paint on both offense and defense. He not only protects the painted area with authority, but also creates crucial second-chance opportunities for his team. Another important achievement is nearing. He is just 4 assists away from reaching 100 assists in the league. This reinforces his ability to create opportunities and involve his teammates in strategic plays. These numbers directly reflect the impact Kai brings to the court. His combination of imposing physicality, technical ability, and tactical intelligence makes him one of the most complete players in the league. Every point, rebound, and assist brings him closer not only to records but also to the dream of playing in the NBA. His performance has caught the attention of analysts and commentators who already consider him a player capable of raising the competitive level of the B-League. Comparisons with great past big men are starting to emerge, highlighting his potential to leave a legacy in international basketball. But for Kai, more than statistics or records, the important thing is to keep evolving and making his mark in every game. Kai Sotto's future has been one of the most debated topics among fans and experts, and one of the most mentioned destinations for him in the NBA is the Golden State Warriors. The franchise's fans have already started a campaign on social media asking for his signing, believing he could be the missing piece to strengthen the team. The Warriors are known for their fast and dynamic style of play, with an emphasis on long-distance shooting and constant movement. However, one of the team's weak points has been the lack of a dominant presence in the paint, someone who can protect the defensive area, grab rebounds, and bring balance to the team. Kai fits exactly that profile. His impressive height and game-reading ability are characteristics that could transform the Warriors' performance. Moreover, his international experience, facing different styles of basketball around the world, makes him an interesting prospect for a franchise looking to refresh its roster without sacrificing competitiveness. For the Warriors, signing Kai would represent a low-risk, high-potential move. He has already demonstrated his ability to contribute both defensively and offensively, being an efficient finisher near the basket and constantly improving his mid-range shot. Combining this with his competitive mindset and dedication to improvement, he would fit well into the team's system. The fans are excited about this possibility, knowing that players with Kai's skill set and potential are rare. For many, he could be exactly what the team needs to get back to competing for the top spot in the NBA. If you like the content, leave a like to support the channel and subscribe if you haven't already. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss anything about the Warriors. Thanks, and see you in the next video.